We'll try to get the audio up just a little bit, but you have to hear this. This is critical.
This is critically important. You can't understand the present without understanding the past.
Surveillance of citizens not involved in criminal activities could exist in the law enforcement agencies of Pima County, and Fred Allison has more about that.
Tucson in the late 1960s, like many other university towns, was worried about the possibility of violence on the campus. Anti-war sentiments were growing to a peak that would be represented later by the shootings at Kent State. And the late 1960s, a time when at least one person in Pima County apparently was being watched by a local law enforcement agency for reasons not directly related to criminal activity. Tucson attorney Bill Risner says he was shadowed, followed, and monitored by an undercover agent of the Pima County Sheriff's Department. Risner was actively against the war, but he says he doesn't know if it was his opposition to the war that caused him to be placed under surveillance. How did Risner find out he was being watched? The man who did the watching later told him.
There was a coordination between various police agencies at the time who had undercover agents. The Sheriff's Department, the Tucson Police Department has purely political surveillance agents. The State Department of Public Safety had political agents at the time, as did military intelligence, and as would the FBI. So I think the prime motivation was citizens who were active in any kind of affair, then they would want to know who these people were, who their friends were, what they were saying. And it was an effort to ferret out people who would be opposed to governmental policies and would stand up and say what they wanted to.
You talked to the agent who was assigned to you. What was that conversation like?
Well, it was kind of interesting because I really didn't recognize the person, and he wanted to know if I recognized him and said that he had been my agent, that he had been assigned to me. And I asked him what his assignment was, if he was looking into criminal matters, was I accused of doing something wrong? And he said, no, quite the contrary. There was no accusation at all that I was doing anything wrong, no hint that I was violating any crime, but that they wanted to know what I was doing and saying. And I asked him, was I doing or saying anything wrong? And he said, no, as a matter of fact, he agreed with what I was saying.
And there's corroboration of Risner's story of being monitored by the Sheriff's Department. The undercover agent assigned to watch Risner, no longer a member of the Sheriff's Office and not wishing to be identified.
I was assigned to the university to monitor Risner's talks, attend the rallies, and report on what he was attempting to do or say.
Was there any particular subject that Risner might be talking about that you were to pay special attention to?
Other than that of causing violence, either on the marches or on the university.
After the rallies, after the speeches, what happened?
We would meet at the University of Arizona Police Department and report to the higher authorities what the substance of the talks were about.
When you say we, were there other agents as well?
There were.
Also following Mr. Risner?
Well, they were assigned numerous duties. One of them was Risner's talks. We would take turns.
Are Conrad Joyner and Ron Asta justified in worrying about surveillance from the Pima County Sheriff's Office? The answer to that question may be in the answers to two other questions. Was there ever a system for watching and observing and reporting on dissidents in Tucson? If there was such a system, has that system been dismantled? For News on 9, this is Fred Allison reporting.
I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. But I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger, and yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in missions by the government, by the people, by every businessman or labor leader, and by every newspaper. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day. It is a system which has conscripted vast human and material resources into the building of a tightly knit, highly efficient machine that combines military, diplomatic, intelligence, economic, scientific, and political operations. Its preparations are concealed, not published. Its mistakes are buried, not headlined. Its dissent